Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fortifying Your Faith. My name is Haston Hanley, and I'm so glad you can be back with us again today as we are continuing our series of lessons through areas in which we as Christians need to be focusing on growing and strengthening our lives as Christians. Last season, and the first one with Scattered Abroad, we looked at relaying that basic groundwork of what we believe and why we believe it as Christians. And so I thought this year and this season it would be better to sit down and actually look at relaying the walls, looking at strengthening something that we can build upon now that we have the foundation of our faith relayed. And so we've been looking at 2 Peter chapter 1 verses 5 through 7, where Peter says, "And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience or steadfastness, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness or brotherly love, and to brotherly love charity or love." And most recently, we have been looking at the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness or kindness, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, temperance. And he says, against such there is no law. Because of some overlapping topics within those, we have gotten through both of those verses and both of those passages and have really been discussing how to grow our Christian life. So to close out this season, and by looking at the last few main episodes, I want us to, this week, look at growing in character. And Lord willing, next week we'll look at growing in preparation, and that is being ready as a Christian. And then we'll dig into some other characteristics that we should be growing in. But to begin today, I want us to spend a few minutes in 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12 as we discuss that idea of growing in character. That is, growing in who you are, growing in the mental or moral qualities that make you an individual, growing in what makes you, you. And as Christians, what makes us who we are ought to be our relationship and our life with God. And so, as Paul is writing to Timothy, who is standing firm for the faith, who is standing up and preaching the gospel, he tells Timothy, "Let no man despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word, in conduct," the King James Version says conversation, "in love, in spirit, in faith, and in purity." You see, all of those things that Timothy was supposed to be, Paul was saying, make sure that you are an example of the believers in your character, in the characteristics that you are showing that you are living as a Christian. Make sure that when someone looks at you, they are seeing a Christian. So what do people see when they look at us? Are they seeing someone who is living the Christian life by the things that we say? As Paul says here, be an example of the believers in your words, in your speech. Are you actually backing up what you believe by the way you talk and the many different things that you say throughout the day? Or are you just being careless with how you are around people? Even if it's people you might be comfortable around or anything like that, are we in good character in the way that we speak? Paul says even in the way that we conduct ourselves. If someone in the world around you, maybe someone you work with or talk to throughout the day, if they were to find out you are a Christian, what would their reaction be? If I were to walk up to your coworker and just say, yeah, did you know that they are a Christian? Would they be surprised, or would they rather look at me and say, well, of course he is, or of course she is. I've known that forever, or I could definitely tell by the way that they were living their lives. You see, growing in character is the life that we are putting on display for everyone else, but it's not just supposed to be a show. It's not supposed to be something that's faked or dishonest. We go over to 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 5. Paul talks to Timothy once again about the unfeigned faith, and we've discussed this season already, but the genuine faith of Lois and Eunice that Paul saw and knew that they believed. It was their genuine character that was honest and sincere. Because, you see, we can also find bad examples of characters. Bad examples of people's lifestyles and the things that they live. If you go over to Matthew chapter 7, beginning in verse 1 is what many people love to talk about as maybe their favorite verse of the Bible. It might even be someone's favorite or only verse that they know about the Bible. And really, most people only quote the first few words where Jesus says, "Judge not." But Christ goes into it and says, don't judge, because you're going to be judged in the same way that you are judging this other person. And so Jesus goes on into verse 15. He says, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You might say, well, Jesus, that's a very bold assumption, because you are judging that person. In fact, verse 16, he says, you shall know them by their fruits. You can look at the life they're living. You can look at them by their characteristics, by the way that they act, and by their history, and you can see maybe you need to be leery of someone. Many times, that's the mindset and that's the character of a lot of Christians, because they attend worship on Sunday, but they might never act like a Christian again throughout the rest of the week. People might look at them and say that they're doing good, but every evidence that has come out about them proves otherwise. Jesus says, do men gather grapes of thorns or figs from thistles? Do you go to an apple tree and expect to get an orange? No, because you have evidence of what that tree is. He says, even so, every good tree brings forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree brings forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is cast down, or hewn down, and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them, by their character, by the life that they live, by the things that they have presented to us, we can know more about people. But, just like we've been talking about, that can be just as bad about people looking at us. Do we provide that viewpoint of living a proper Christian life, or is our character just not there? Next week, Lord willing, I want us to spend some time looking at being prepared as a Christian. And hopefully, Lord willing, we will discuss that and we can all be more prepared. But until next week, let's continue to study and let's continue to grow so that we can all fortify our faith.